Hi guys! Today I'm gonna show you how I create personalized moccasin aprons for my original handmade moccasins. So let's start! As a first step, I copied the shape of the aprons from the sewing pattern. Then I selected photos of my husky I wanted to have on my moccasins. I started sketching my husky's face on the left apron. I started with the main features and kept adding more details that made my husky's face distinct. Once that was done, I added some elements around the edges. I also made a line where I wanted the aprons to end. I wanted to make them a little bit shorter. Then I took a second photo of my husky and sketched the second apron. I thought having two different pictures would be something different. When I made my sketches, I tried to include as many distinct features as possible while simplifying the motifs for the leather carving. Once the second sketch was done, I added again a few elements around the edges. You could of course mirror the exact image of the edges from the first apron, but I did not personally care for symmetry this time. After I copied the line for the top edge from the first apron, I covered both aprons with tape on both sides and I cut them out. I took a scrap of veg tan leather and moistened it. I placed one of the aprons on it and marked the outlines. I cut the apron out with a tooling knife. I moistened the leather again and placed the pattern with the motif on it. I went with a ballpoint pen over all important lines and features to indent them into the surface of the leather. And then it looked like this. I turned the apron to the wrong side and I have shaved the edges to thin them out a little bit. I cut the top edge additionally with scallop-shaped scissors for an extra effect. And I repeated all these procedures you just have seen with the second apron. I moistened the second apron and placed the second motif on it and indented the motif by tracing all important lines with a ballpoint pen, just like I did with the first apron. Now you could simply punch in all the holes. I usually do, but this time, for whatever reason, I made rather a groove for the whole line instead and went ahead and beveled the edges first. Then I grabbed my swivel knife and started engraving the motifs. I basically copied all the lines. And then it looked like this. Next, I moistened the leather again and I went in with a beveler stamp to add more dimension to the lines. I added more fine lines to the fur with the swivel knife. And then I kept using different stamps for example, the facial features, the ears, and the background. I also used various decorative stamps around the edges. You do not get too much depth in this letter because it's a thin one. It's about 1.7 to 2 millimeters, but you will still have some dimension. And I repeated all on the second moccasin apron, the same way. Next, I punched in the holes for the laces and also all the sewing holes. Honestly, I think it is always best to punch all the holes in before you start carving. No idea why I did that the other way around this time, but my mind is a mystery to myself even after almost 49 years. Now both aprons were carved and I had all the holes, so I let the leather dry. As a next step, I painted both aprons with Angelus acrylic paint. I started with white, and sometimes more layers were necessary. And then I kept adding colors as needed. These acrylic paints are simply amazing. You can mix them as you need to create your desired individual shade. I always used the photos of my Husky as reference. And here you have a comparison of a photo and the carved and painted motif. And you guessed it, I repeated all the steps on the second apron. I took care of the motifs around the edges. I also used the acrylic paint for the edges. I decided to use the green shade. I painted the top edge in gold. And then I added a bit of color. I simply made little dots so that it would look like these were tiny little gems. And then the aprons looked like this, and at this point they had to dry completely before I went on with further steps. After the aprons were dry, I went in with Fiebing's antique gel. I applied the gel on each motif, rubbed it in all elements, and then I wiped it away quite immediately. The antique gel gets into all lines and dents and gives the work more dimension while muting the colors just a little bit. Once the gel was completely dry, I applied Fiebing's clear edge coat on all edges. And then I sealed my work with Fiebing's Vaseline. That makes it all waterproof. And here we have the finished aprons. And this is what the moccasins looked like once they were finished. Here are a few other motifs I created recently. You can get super creative with your moccasins. I personally recommend using a 3 to 4 ounces veg tan leather for the aprons. You will not get too much depth in your carving, as I already mentioned, since the leather is thin, but your work will still have dimension and it will make your moccasins definitely special. Plus, a thicker leather would be a little too stiff for moccasins. Overall, personalized aprons make moccasins simply original and beautiful. Alright, so that's how I make the personalized moccasin aprons. It's a lot of work, but it's definitely worth it because it's such fun, creative process. You can put pretty much anything on your moccasin aprons as long as you're able to put it on paper. And the rest is just to make the first step and to try things out, and you'll see you will improve with each pair, which is basically what I'm doing. I'm learning with every single pair that I make, but it's just so much fun because each pair of the handmade moccasins I create is an original, and I love seeing people wearing them and enjoying them. It just makes me so happy. If you missed my video in which I have shown how I sew these moccasins, it's linked down below. And that's gonna be all for today. I will get back to sewing because I have some really fun projects planned for you all. And thank you all for watching. Have a wonderful day and see you next time with my next project. Bye.